Snyder from VolQuest's On 3, Brent Hubbs this morning. Brent, what's going on? Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday to you guys. Hope everybody's well.
Yes, sir. We are excellent. Tennessee and Chaz Lanier, man, looking like they did in the first round last season when Dalton Connect started his run off with a good performance. I feel like Chaz has made a couple more threes just since we started the show this morning, Brent. What stood out to you about the win for the Vols last night?
Well, I mean, I thought it was pretty businesslike. They were far from perfect, but the moment, obviously, Chaz's first time in the NCAA tournament, and he played well. Obviously, Tennessee was comfortable in that gym. Zakai Ziegler played well. They did what they needed to do. It was not the great beatdown. I thought they had a chance to run Wofford out earlier than what they did, but there was never a threat of Tennessee getting upset. You go about your business and advance to the next one. So I think that Tennessee did some good things. There's some things they need to work on. They got to clean up the glass a little bit. But if those guards are going to play like that, Tennessee gives themselves a chance. I think everybody this morning is looking at this matchup with UCLA coming up Saturday night at 9:40 or whatever time that start time is. And the concern is, can Tennessee survive in the post? Are they going to be okay in the post in this matchup? UCLA's got some size. Tennessee has got to get a little more production in the post than what they've been getting the last couple of games.
Brent, do you have any idea that Rick Barnes almost took the UCLA job? Because we're about to hear about that a lot, aren't we?
Yeah, I heard that story. I heard that story one time. I know this. Rick Barnes should thank UCLA because he made $200,000 for that win last night.
Oh,
one of the biggest things that came out of him not taking the UCLA job was a really nice bonus structure. So he benefits greatly from winning in the tournament and finishing in the top 5 or the top 10 in the final polls. So his bonus structure was the most drastic change really to come out of him electing to stay at Tennessee and not go to UCLA. So he should thank him for that. But yeah, I think the 48 hours he flirted with UCLA is going to be certainly a topic of conversation when he meets the media this afternoon.
Yeah, he flirted with UCLA. Grant Williams almost went to an Ivy League school. Josh Dobbs was almost an astronaut. All thing we've never heard about, Brent.
Yeah, it's like this tale as old as time.
That's right.
It's like Ramon Foster almost did something.
Or Ramon Foster was a kicker at Ripley High School.
There we go. That's it. Brent Hubbs with us this morning, man. Speaking of UCLA, too, man, it's been quoted by their coach, Mick Cronin, that Tennessee's been in a golden era, man. You can find that article on VolQuest.com, by the way. But Tennessee's been in a golden era, man, and I feel like that is the case. You don't appreciate it until somebody's done. But you look at what Admiral Schofield was capable of doing, the amount of players that he's got in, McDonald's All-Americans that Rick Barnes had, first-round draft picks, man. And last night, Zakai Ziegler, man, becoming the assist leader for the Vols here. How crucial has this, or how big has this era been under Coach Rick Barnes, though, with the type of players that he's kind of put through this program?
Well, it is the golden era. I mean, when you think about it, Tennessee's got 3 seasons in the history of Tennessee basketball where they've won 28 games or more.
Wow.
And 2 of those have come in the Rick Barnes era. The other one was in the Bruce Pearl era. This team has the 3rd highest number of wins of any Tennessee basketball team in history. And this is, quote, a down year by the standards of some people because they didn't win the regular season or they weren't in contention for the regular season at the end of the regular season. So, what Rick's done has been terrific. Now, I get it. You're all judged by what you do in postseason play. And if Tennessee, doesn't get it done Saturday night, then this will be a disappointment, right? Because you're a 2 seed and you didn't advance out. But when your bracket holds chalk, then that second round game's a hard game. You're not a 2 seed playing an 11 or 10 or whatever the number would be. You're playing a harder team and a team that played well last night. But I think when you look at what Rick Barnes has given Tennessee basketball fans and those of us who are 50, which is where I am, we remember.
That's all?
Yeah, I know. Thanks. Some days it feels 67. Some days it feels 77. It's a cold morning this morning. My joints say I might be 82. So, it's one of those things. But, I remember the orange seats, and I remember 5,000 fans being there at games. And I remember being able to basically talk to somebody on the other side of the court during a game, because it was when I was in school at Tennessee from 92 to 96. And that was a black, dark, horrible era of Tennessee basketball. 5-22 uncompetitive type games. And so if you're in the age I'm in, or in that window, then you have a greater appreciation for it. If you started becoming a fan when Bruce Pearl became the coach at Tennessee, then this feels a little bit more like the norm, right?
Yeah.
Going to the tournament every year, this is what you do. But if you're an older fan, yeah, you got a great appreciation for what Rick Barnes has done and the consistency his team has played with year in and year out during his time in Tennessee.
Man, one thing about having crucial guys or pivotal guys is what you would call them, like your Ron Slays, you know what I'm saying? Like those types of guys that come through those programs, is you want them to leave a lasting mark. We spoke earlier, Zakai taking over Johnny Darden's assist record. What does it mean to a guy like Zakai at his size, where he's coming from? I think he was accidentally found in recruiting. What does that say about him and Coach Barnes' eye for talent?
Well, it says that you never stop looking. And, I think those days are probably going to be fewer and further between now because of the transfer portal. It's easier to find a guy with experience than it is to take a chance or take a flyer on a guy who you find late in the process. And, Zakai's talked about it. I mean, he was about done with basketball because few were interested in him. And Rick Barnes has talked about it because what Zakai's done as a competitor every day on the practice floor has made him a better coach, has made him enjoy coaching better. From a fan standpoint, here's a guy who's been here his entire time, right? He's not no offense to Dalton Connect or Chaz Lanier. Fans love those guys too, but they really love the guy who's played all 4 years for you and has been the guy. I remember sitting in Rick Barnes's annex office in Pratt Pavilion, which is where he hangs out most of the time. And I was doing an interview with him on media day, preseason media day. And we were talking, and we did the interview, and we finished, and he turned to me and he said, this town, this fan base will absolutely fall in love with Zakai Ziegler because he's one of the toughest dudes I've ever been around. He goes, they're going to love him. He's undersized. He plays hard. He's got a great smile and a great personality. He said he will be a star with the fans because he's going to be a really good player for us. He goes, we were going to redshirt him. He goes, our plan has been to redshirt him. He said, we've worked him out now. He goes, we're not redshirting him. He'll play. And he's exactly right. I mean, fans love him because he is undersized, and they love his competitive spirit. They love the fact that, he does smile on the court regardless of what's going on. And Rick was exactly right in that he became the face of the program because of the toughness he showed from the day he got on campus.
Hubs, just on a little fun side of this conversation we're having, right? You speak about fans and popularity. If you were to do a poll of three guys, who would win the best popularity contest? Would it be Zakai, Grant Williams, or Josh Dobbs?
Well, football's going to take precedent over basketball, so that's probably not a fair deal. I think people resonate more with Zakai. Even though Grant Williams was a quote overachiever and as Will said was going to the Ivy League, and all the things that he was going to do. I mean, Grant's a big guy who's skilled and can play, and Zakai is one of those. I mean, he plays like he's playing on a playground somewhere, just within the structure of what Rick Barnes wants to do. But he's a guy that you look at and go, he's going to play from sun up to sundown. Yeah. He's going to play the whole time. He's just a little Energizer Bunny, Mighty Mouse type dude. So I think that's part of what everybody likes about Zakai Ziegler and likes about who he is. So, I mean, I would say Dobbs because of what he did for Tennessee football and kind of brought them out of doldrums, if you will, when they were there. So I would go with Dobbs, but I think there's a lot of people that have Zakai Ziegler deep in their heart because of they can relate to him a little better than they can certainly Grant Williams.
I think I would pick Z.
Yeah,
and I've played with Dobbs, but like Z, I think That's a hard pick.
Josh Dobbs might also pick Sakai
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think Hubs is right.
Well,
You're right.
Here's the thing. I mean, in a lot of ways, Sakai is probably more popular, and maybe that's what you're asking. But in terms of when you sit back and say impact and what he meant to fans, I think a lot of people would pick Dobbs.
Okay.
Because again, look at who Dobbs beat in his career.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Look at the teams he beat. Where was Tennessee before Josh Dobbs got there?
Ooh.
Josh Dobbs put Tennessee as a top 5. They were 5-0 going to Texas A&M.
Sure were.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Hail Mary against Georgia. It's the last win you've had over the Bulldogs. You beat Florida at home. That broke a streak as well. I mean, he did some really important things for Tennessee football, and took them to a place they had not been for a long time. And I'm not saying Ziegler hasn't done that, but I mean, Grant Williams took Tennessee basketball to a place that they hadn't been as well. So from a raw popularity, maybe Z. From an impactfulness, I think most Tennessee fans would probably say Dobbs. I think it's a great question, Ramon. I mean, I think it's a great debate.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love it. Brent Hubbs of VolQuest with us this morning. Brent, you mentioned UCLA, the matchup. It's so interesting in the era of basketball we're in where teams want to take a ton of threes and run up and down the floor. We get to a little bit more old school coaches that want to grind out and play a slower tempo in Rick Barnes and Mick Cronin. But what stands out to you about this matchup, and do you like the matchup for Tennessee against a team that, as you mentioned, has got a 7-footer and some real size inside?
Well, they've got real size, and they play some – I mean, they went 8 deep last night, you know, playing double-digit minutes. They ended up playing, I think, 11 guys. Now, one played a minute at the end. He doesn't really count. 2 guys. But then they kind of played some walk-ons late. But they got a little bit of depth, and they can rotate some guys. They've got size. They do want to grind it out and play defense. Here's the thing about UCLA. I think for as much as Mick Cronin eviscerated his team publicly for December and part of January, in addition to eviscerating travel plans and everything else, because Mick Cronin seems kind of angry most of the time, his team has gotten better. And I think when you look at what they've done down the stretch of the regular season, it's a team that I think has started to figure out what he's looking for. You know, if UCLA shoots 49% from the field and makes 10 threes, which is what they did last night, Tennessee's going to have a hard time. Now, how good is Utah State defensively? Fair question. I mean, we don't know. They had a good record coming in, but that doesn't really mean anything because I don't know who all they played throughout the year. So I think it's an intriguing matchup. I think it is going to be a battle of wills. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Tennessee defensively plays gaps, how Mick Cronin attacks those gaps. Do they get a lot of inside-out threes out of this? I thought last night Utah State tried to double a couple times, gave up wide-open looks from the three-point line. You can't do that. So Tennessee's got to be more sound defensively, and I think they got to be more sound defensively than they were last night themselves. But if both teams get their defense going, this will be a bruised and battered slugfest for sure if Tennessee can stay out of foul trouble.
Well, as Rick Barnes of the Vols battle with UCLA this weekend, Brent, on the football side of things, a big scrimmage coming up for Tennessee and Josh Heupel. As you look ahead to that, Brent, and through the early parts of spring practice, what are you most interested to learn coming out of this first scrimmage? And what do you think the coaching staff is interested to learn about this team as they have kind of a big checkpoint this weekend?
Well, I think for offensively, there's 2 areas for me. Now, you can say 4 or 5, but I got 2 areas on my radar. One is the physicality of the offensive line. I'm not worried about Pendleton. I'm not worried about Wendell Moy, but I want to know how much better Lance Hurd is from a movement standpoint, and where is David Sanders and William Satterwhite. Satterwhite's done all the things mentally you want him to do. Now he's got to do it without a coach around, with a clock, and making adjustments on the fly and playing physical. You got to do both of those things. And so how does he handle that? And then outside on the perimeter at the receiver spot, how do they handle things, again, when coaches are on the sidelines, nobody's behind you telling you what to look for, what to watch for, that type thing. I mean, the one thing about Josh Heupel in scrimmage settings, is, and I think we've talked about this before, he just puts the ball down and says play. Okay. There's not a ton of rules. There's not a, hey, Tim Banks, you can't do this. You know, you got to limit your stunts or blitzes or whatever. We're just going to go play football and see how guys react. And Willie Martinez, you can't stand behind your corners and tell them what to watch for and what to do. Like, it's go play time, and let's see where we're at. So how do young guys react to kind of playing the game with coaches on the sideline in a true game setting on Saturday? And there's a lot of young guys playing. You know, there's young corners, some young linebackers. But really, I think you look at those young offensive linemen and you look at the receivers, and those are two areas that really stand out to me as to what to watch for. There's plenty of other storylines, but those are probably my biggest two.
Hubs, that's what I was going to ask you with the structure of this scrimmage right there. Like, when you say they just put the ball down and play, what are the attitudes like in that point? Because this is where those fights kind of break out. And I'm not promoting fighting in practice or scrimmages, but when you tell me that the defensive coordinator can call whatever he wants, that lets me know that they're trying to really pick with the offense at that point. And he has the ability to say, you know what? You guys suck over there. Like, what? I'm getting real personal now, Hubs, but what?
Sent Ramon back to a dark place.
I know, because defenses are always ahead of the offense, usually, more times than not, especially this time of the year. What is the attitude and response like you expect from those guys on the offensive side of the ball?
I love it when I get you going, because you got visions of. Hey, you got visions of Bear Mike Shoot from John Chavis.
Listen, Coach Chavis gassing up Omar Gaither and Marlon Mitchell, and you got
your boy Rob Ayers,
Justin Harrell over there just wrecking shop. Yeah, I get ticked off on this, so let me know. I need a fight, and who is it going to be?
Well, I don't know about a fight, but I think the question is, you know, how do guys respond, right?
Okay.
And how does William Satterwhite respond against Jackson Moore? He's not going to win every rep, right? But where are you at? Because again, this is not 1-on-1 anymore. This is going to be, we could stunt, we can do some different things if you want to, and even if you put rules in, the rules go out the window about 2 series in. They always have, because some coordinator called a play the other coordinator didn't think was allowed because it was on the do not do list, and vice versa. And then all of a sudden it becomes a football game, which is ultimately what every coach wants it to be anyway, right? So, I mean, I think that's the fascinating part. How does David Sanders pass block when he's got to worry about everything else out there that's going on, different looks, twists, maybe the nickel corner's coming on a blitz, or maybe they're wrapping, you know, a linebacker outside him. How does he handle some of those things? And I think that's what you're looking for as a coach. Knowing it's not going to be perfect, how do you respond when something bad happens? Do you bow your neck? Do you get does one bad play become 4 bad plays, or what do you do? And I think that's what coaches are looking for in matchup, in scrimmages on both sides of the ball. So I don't know. I think that's going to be interesting to see which side of the ball responds best. I think you look defensively, you feel like there's a little more leadership right now. Offensively, can Nico lead and have his guys on to the next play? You know, does Nico not allow a bad play to become a second or third bad play? That's the growth and evolution you're looking for from some of these returning offensive players, and how do they help the young offensive players move on to the next play? It's a good storyline on Saturday.
Brent, you have a hot board ready for Tennessee baseball coach now that baseball's lost 2 games in a row? Potential candidates to replace Tony Vitello?
You know what? That one last night was tough because they did something that they had not really done. They have fielded the ball really well. Yeah. And what they did is what I was just talking about with football in the scrimmage setting. They let one bad play become 2.
Right.
And Liam Doyle let it become 3, and all of a sudden you're walking guys, and you kind of lose, and the inning got away from you, and it's 5 runs. And you just can't do that. I know that's baseball, but Tennessee's done a good job of not doing that until last night, and they had that moment. The question now is going to be, how do they respond today? Remember, this is a team that's not lost a series in SEC play since they were in Tuscaloosa last year. How do they respond to this? What kind of, what does Phillips do on the mound for Tennessee? And can Tennessee clean it up in the field? I mean, when you go back and look at last Saturday, Marcus Phillips threw, he was pitcher of the week, but he threw a bunch of first pitch strikes, got ahead of batters, and got a bunch of ground ball outs. And they made a bunch of great plays behind him to keep Florida, from having a big inning or getting going that way. does this infield and outfield respond tonight the way you expect them to respond and pick their pitcher up? They didn't in the second inning last night, and it cost them.
5 names to replace Tony Vitello next week with Brent Hubbs. I'm kidding, of course. Brent Hubbs of VolQuest's and On 3, our guest Fridays at 7:20. Always excellent, Brent. Thanks so much.
Hey, Hubbs, real quick, just so you know, our other basketball historian has some choice words for us, okay? Ron Slay said, y'all just forget about our era. He said this. They fired Jerry Green 4 straight NCAA tournaments and 2 SEC regular season championships. Recruiting at a high level. We definitely bringing this up. So Ron Slay got his topic for the day.
All right, wait a minute. All right, just call me back in the Ron Slay hour. We'll have this debate. Okay.
Yes.
Listen, I love me some Ron Slay. I love Ron Slay.
Yeah.
The problem is Rick Barnes is the deacon out there selling it to all the people, and Jerry was telling everybody to go to the Kmart. Okay, that's not Ron's fault. It's not Ron's fault that he told him to go to the Kmart. But I mean, Ron was popular.
Yeah.
But Jerry made him a little bit harder to like. But again, Ron, what year was that? What year was you playing, Ron? 99?
99, 02, 99, 03.
Check the tape, Slay. I said 92 to 96.
Yeah.
You were still kicking slats out of your crib when I went to school. You didn't even know where Malta, Wilson, Virginia was at that point.
Oh, man. I love it. All right.
We'll give you a ring
This will be brought
Hubbs.
back up. This will be brought back up. Thank you, Brent. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
All right. There he is. Brent Hubbs with us this morning.
He got me going, and I got Ron going. There we go. Let's go.
It is established that Ron Slay's teams at Tennessee are not given the credit that they deserve. No doubt about it.
I feel them on that.
100%.
Yeah, I feel them.
100%. VolQuest's Brent Hubbs, brought to you by Ascend Federal Credit Union, your financial partner for every stage of life. All right, there is a rule proposal in the NFL that is being seen as more fair. I'm going to tell you why it's actually going to make things less fair in the NFL, something the Detroit Lions want to do coming up next.